Who is Sai Baba?
That's a good question. He is pure love personified and all the ramifications of pure love. He said, "You're not retiring, I'm going to retire you." So with Baba,
retire you.
Yes, you don't take a vacation. He doesn't take any vacation.
He puts a new tread on you.
Yeah, he doesn't take any vacation. He says, "Change of work is rest for me. I have no particular agenda of my own. And my only complaint is he has given me only 24 hours a day." Puttaparthi is telling the world now, discover your heart, discover the compassion, and let it flood all over your body, and let it flow out through your body in acts of love, selfless love, that is.
He is a man of brilliance and ceaseless energy, Dr. G Venkatraman, the former Vice Chancellor of the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning and an acclaimed Indian physicist who served as an atomic energy scientist. Welcome to Souljourns for this informal conversation about life, love, and Sai Baba.
Dr. G Venkatraman, it is a pleasure to be sitting across the table from you, speaking to you on this program tonight. But I have to ask you, do you feel a little strange because normally you're the one asking all the questions? This is much easier on my side than it is on your side, isn't it?
Do I? It's like an examiner sitting for an examination, and I don't know what you're going to do with this table.
All right, what's the toughest question you think I could possibly ask you about your life and about your spirituality?
Do you think I'm going to leak that out? Not for money.
You're a man of letters and a man of science, and I was always led to believe that science and spirituality simply do not mix. Are you an aberration there? What caused you to come into the world of both of these disciplines?
Well, I'm glad you asked this question. I have to clarify some misconceptions here. I will leave out the philosophical aspect, but staying with the purely human aspect. It's only a recent fashion that scientists cough on spirituality. If you go back in history, you don't have to go too far back. If you just go up to, say, Newton and Galileo. Let's take Newton. I don't know whether you know, Newton wanted very much to be a priest.
Did not know that.
And he was a great believer in God. And he always was amazed by the power of God. For example, he believed in absolute space, a concept in physics. But of course, now we know there is no absolute space. There is only absolute space-time. That came with Einstein. That's a different story. But the point is, he said, you must have absolute space, otherwise it won't be consistent with divinity. And similarly, he looked at the thumb and said, thumb alone is enough to prove the existence of God. And Newton was not an isolated singularity, as we say in mathematics. He was not an exception. That was the kind of feeling that prevailed. And here you must note that till the Renaissance, there was no separate philosophy and science. In fact, even today, you get a PhD, that's a degree in philosophy, natural philosophy. Mm-hmm. But later on, they started to part company. There are many historical reasons for that. But just to mention another person, I think it was Maupertuis, but I can't be 100% sure. He was the first fellow to discover the principle of what we call least action. And he said, God ordained it this way. So everybody invoked God and attributed the laws of nature to God. As late as the 1920s, Werner Heisenberg, he was a young man then, he made one of the profoundest discoveries of that century, 20th century. At 3 o'clock in the morning, he discovered the laws of quantum physics for the first time. And he later wrote a letter to his sister saying, I felt as if I was looking over the shoulders of the Lord.
When did you become so interested in the why?
Okay, my case is somewhat different. For the simple reason, I led a double life, so to say.
Oh.
You see, born in India and having been born in a traditional family, one gets exposed to sort of religion. And I was given a lot of books as a small boy that related to our epics, which I read and I liked. The second thing was, the god that I liked very much was Lord Rama, who stood for truth and righteousness. He was an ideal person, and he naturally inspired a lot of admiration, and he was widely worshipped. And Gandhi was very much around when I was a small boy, and he used to adore Rama. In fact, he died with the name of Rama on his lips. So Rama became very acceptable, particularly because of Gandhi. But when I started my scientific career, I sort of, would think of God at times and science at times. And of course, there were periods when one began to wonder about certain aspects. But later on, as one grew up and one became older and wiser, shall I say, I realized that, as Baba says, science is only one half of the story, and spirituality is the missing half. And unless you have all of it together, you don't get the whole picture.
Let me ask you one question about Gandhi, since you brought up his name. If I recall correctly, it was around 1935, 37. He was talking to a reporter from a London newspaper, and he made the comment that my life is my message. Somebody else makes that comment a whole lot too. What significance does Sathya Sai Baba have in your life?
You're going to need more than half an hour for me to explain that. But let me put it very crisply. I think Sathya Sai Baba not only has transformed me, but he has made my life meaningful. I went around doing all sorts of things. I got a kick out of it too, some of it at least. Sometimes the events kicked me, but that's a different story. But I did not realize the answer to certain basic questions. Stephen Hawking ends his book, I think it's called something to do with time. I don't remember the exact title.
The History of Time?
Yes, I think that's it. It was on New York Times bestseller and all that sort of thing. He ends the book with some questions like, we don't know why the universe is there and what our relationship to it and so forth. I found those questions very interesting because spiritual philosophy began thousands of years ago when man began to ask those questions. You see, ancient man lived under the canopy of the stars. So he saw nature and he began to wonder using the gift that God had given to him. Now we live in houses, we shut the windows, we shut the doors, we put curtains, and all we see is the roof and the television screen, so we don't wonder. We don't even have to think, somebody else thinks for us. But ancient man was not like that, and he asked the very same questions. Where did all these things come from? Where did I come from? How do I relate to these? We are still left with those questions. That is because we are not paying attention to the answers to those questions that have been discovered by wise men in different parts of the world. Sathya Sai Baba made me realize what those answers were and made me reflect and understand many things. And also he made me realize the real purpose of human life. The real purpose of human life, as I now see it, is to recognize the divinity in man. And this is something that has been recognized by many religions. They all say God made man in his own image. Well, if God is divine, then man has to be divine too if he is the image of God.
It takes effort to make a transformation that you just alluded to, and by your own admission, you got a kick out of life when you were the old Dr. Venkataraman. What about the person I see before me today? Why did you decide to make the effort to undergo the transformation when you were perfectly content, it sounds like, before?
Well, that's an interesting question. I would say I did not make the effort, it was divinely ordained. You see, I had a couple of major setbacks in life. And as one of our saints says,